Hello, what's up guys? I'm Kyle from KGR, and this is the Revoltech Jaden Yuki. Or if you're a 4Kids dub fanboy like I am, this is Jaden, not Judai. Now, I was super excited for this figure to come out, because originally I saw Good Smile was coming out with Nendoroids of both Jaden and Yusei, and I love both GX and 5Ds. But I already have the Figma for Yugi, so I didn't want to collect Nendoroids all over again. I want that proper scale. So when I was informed that Revoltech was doing a Jaden figure, and then later they announced a Yusei figure, I was sold. I'm on it. So now that I finally have this figure in person, it's alright. It's better than mid. It's not great, but it's not bad. The only big issue I have with this figure is mainly how the articulation looks. So like you see the elbows right here and how they move, and these are knees, and I guess the legs can move. It takes a lot of pressure, but there you go, you can do that if you need to. And the shoulders I don't fully understand. Like, it looks like you can press them forward technically, but like you still really can't do much with it. It's definitely not a butterfly joint. It's not particularly good. The aesthetics on this figure are not very great. And also the ab crunch might as well not exist, because if you move it too much then it just snaps off way too easy. But even though I don't like the aesthetics of him, like at least for the articulation, I mean, I'm happy to have him. Like, when I see him on my shelf, I'm really happy to have him. I look at him and it makes me smile. But playing with him is not particularly fun. But let's get a closer look at his sculpt. Besides the articulation, the sculpt itself looks mostly fine. I wish the hair was a little bit spikier, but that's just a gripe. I wouldn't really count that as a real criticism. But I feel like the face could have looked a little bit better, because going into this, I was thinking of the Kuriboh statues and how well they could translate to an action figure, because the Kuriboh figures have been out long before this. And again, the figure itself looks mostly fine, but the biggest problem with a Jaden figure, no matter what company is making it, is his hair, because it only looks good in one direction, unless you give him the ability to swap out the hair to make it look like it's either swaying to the right or swaying to the left, because then you have more options for poses. But unfortunately, we didn't get that with this figure, so if you rotate him to the left a little bit and like the back of his hair is more pointing this way, then yeah, it looks fine. But if you move it to the other side, it doesn't look as good. I want to have that freedom to pose this any way I want and still get good photos. And the face looks fine. I'm not blown away by it, but it still looks decent. But when I compare it to a Kuriboh statue, it's almost unfair, because it's a much bigger scale, so accuracy is easier to handle, as well as it being a statue, not an action figure, so you gotta worry about like customization and all that stuff. That would be a fair criticism if the Figma Yugi didn't exist. Because when I compare this to the Figma Yugi, first up, the scaling isn't perfect. But if you put them in a dynamic pose like how Yugi is right now as he's dueling, then yeah, I think they'd scale half decently well. They would look good next to each other on a shelf. But the Figma for Yugi is my second favorite figure in my whole collection. This thing is gorgeous. They did such a good job with this figure. And that came out probably like at least 5 or so years ago. So with this coming out a few months ago, I can't put words on it. It just doesn't seem right. But this is not Revoltech's first attempt at Yugioh. Back when not Bonds Beyond Time, but the Dark Side Dimensions movie came out, and Vulcan Log under Revoltech had a line, and they brought Yugi as well as Kaiba to life, as well as the Blue Eyes alternative White Dragon and the Dark Magician figure. Which, by the way, can we get a new Dark Magician figure, one that's purple, because I would like to have like a better standard and not so clicky joints. But anyway, when you scale these two together, they actually look really good together. I think the Yugi figure just looks overall better, because this came out forever ago, and he was relatively cheap. It was probably like $35 or $50 at the time. Even though you have these annoying clicky joints, even the articulation looks better than what we have on Jaden right here. Which I feel that's my biggest argument with this figure. If this came out between 5 to 8 years ago at the price point of like $35 or $50, this figure would have been fine. But I paid roughly about $90 for this figure, and it's alright. But they did do a decent job of bringing him to life as an action figure. This is based off a Season 4 appearance, so if you're a 4Kids fanboy, you didn't get to see Season 4. But as a Jaden action figure, he looks fine. I'm not a huge fan of this face in particular, because like, he looks how sad he is, kind of like the look that you're probably going to get after you get this figure. So this is the DX version. So he came with a few more accessories, so let's show those off real quick. So here he is with his accessories, and I believe with the DX version you get the wing Kuriboh, this extra face, as well as this extra hand. This hand and the wing Kuriboh is what made me upgrade to this version. So you have extra stuff like extra hands, extra faces, the Duel Disk, some clamping items, as well as cards. Now whenever I get a Yu-Gi-Oh action figure, the first thing I get excited for is the Duel Disk itself. So let's take a look at that real quick. So the one thing that this does better than the Figma is that you can actually have this in standby mode and put it in duel mode. Now the prototype looked a little better because if you see this picture right here, it looks like the red piece is starting to glow and it like gives off that effect on the rest of the Duel Disk. While in real life on the mass production version, like it's just red, it's just painted red and doesn't really give off the effect of it lighting up or anything. Like the blue has a nice metallic chrome finish. This has nothing. This just clashes. It doesn't look good. But this thing is so loose that like as soon as you flip it upside down, like it doesn't want to stay inside. So I appreciate what they were trying to go for, but I'm just gonna keep it in duel mode. That's fine. But getting it on Jaden, it's something. So we have two different clamps. We have this plastic one right here, which is specifically made for Jaden, and then this other one right here. This is made for any other figure. So the cool thing with this is that you can attach this to any other figure you'd rather put this on. Personally, I don't feel like doing that, but the option is there, so I really appreciate that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna open this up. I feel like the easiest way to do that is to grab the clamps on top of here and just pry those back. It is a very tight hinge, so then we're gonna slip that in and then close that. And it doesn't really budge. Like, I was concerned about the Duel Disk being mostly loose on him, but no, this stays on him really well. And then you gotta line this up, and then slap it on, and then twist it, and then it locks into place. If you do it right. Clearly I didn't. So we're gonna try that again. There we go. There we go. Now it's on him. And then he also comes with extra pieces, like, he comes with a full deck. Personally, I don't understand why they made that as a separate accessory. So we're just gonna put that in the Duel Disk. It actually would have been cool if like it was like spring-loaded, so like you put the deck in and then it launches it, but that would have costed money. So we're not getting that. And then when it comes to the extra cards, you have just a standard card, so this is how it looks, and then like that's the other side of it. And the line work on the paint doesn't line up exactly, so that's a little strange. But I noticed with Yu-Gi-Oh figures, sometimes they have a hard time holding their cards. So when it comes to the next accessory I'm showing you, this is really interesting. If only I could hold things. So this is a handful of cards, but it has a little notch right there, and it's supposed to line up with one of the hands, so like once it's in there, it's not going to fall out easy. And I'm very thankful for that, because as much as I love the Figma Yugi, he can't hold cards worth crap. And let's take a look at the wing Kuriboh. So this is going to be a special figure. I think this is exclusive. And he looks fantastic. But if you don't like the winking wing Kuriboh in particular, there is another form of the wing Kuriboh that you can get. So there was a bit of a blind bag where you can get monsters like wing Kuriboh, Neo-Spacian Grand Mole, Ojama Yellow, and there was 3 other monsters that I can't remember off the top of my head. And I actually have those. They're in the basement. I didn't even open them yet. Because I realized the winking wing Kuriboh, this is fine. I'm happy with just this. And you can even put him on a stand, so you can like set him up with Jaden however you want. And originally, he comes with this little stand. And I think this is supposed to be a magnet, but I think it acts more as a weight than anything. So you can put that in the wing Kuriboh, and then have him float around and just sit like that, which is fine. But when I think of wing Kuriboh and Jaden being with each other, I don't think about them dueling or anything. I think about him like being next to him up in the air and like talking to him, which is why I'm happy they also include a bigger stand and a bigger arm. Because what I like to do, instead of using this little arm right here, I like to put this big arm on this little base to take up less space on the shelf, and then pair him more like that, and I think that makes more sense for the context of the show. So, good accessory. Too bad you gotta pay extra for it. But when it comes to extra faces, the extra faces don't look that bad. So the next one I want to show off outside of this neutral face right here is what I call the taking damage face. Again, I wish I could have allowed you to swap the hair, but that's besides the point. So when I think about this, I think of him taking damage, and I want his arm to be up and like trying to shield himself from taking the damage. But because the articulation is so limited, there's not really like much you can do to try to pose him the way you need to. And I kind of wish it was facing the other way so he could have his Duel Disk down there and then like hold his arm up. Oh yeah, if you move the arm too much, it's probably gonna pop off. So even though it's a Yu-Gi-Oh character, he doesn't need to have super dynamic articulation to do super dynamic poses like hoo ha hoo. No, I just want him to duel. And if I'm struggling to make those poses on this figure, then clearly it's not that good of a figure. But I mean, technically I can do the pose. I just really struggle to get him in those poses. And even then, aesthetically, it doesn't look that good. But anyway, yeah, if the winking was happening on the other side, then yeah, this would look fantastic. And even then, if I turn him to the other side to try and stop the wind, this angle doesn't look good for the hair. So let's try on a different face. We're gonna try on the him winking face. Now this is actually the one that I usually use when I'm posing him on my shelf. So I like to have him holding his cards. So we're gonna put this hand on and then put the set out thing of cards so you can see the notch slightly into his hand so you can see how exactly this is supposed to line up. And you can feel a very slight click when it like slides into place. And he does hold it really well. It's actually really impressive. And then I like to take off this fist and then use the pointer hand, which again, I think this is part of the DX version. I think it's exclusive to this. And then I like to have it so he's like pointing at his enemy saying that's game. I feel like it probably would look better if he was winking the other way, but like this still looks mostly fine. Especially when you have the winged Kuriboh next to him, like, great. I like it. Next up we have a shouting face, so let's put that on. So this time he's going to be saying that he's going to be doing an attack or saying something. So we're going to take off this hand and we're just going to put on this open hand, because whenever you declare an attack, you typically have your hand open. At least I do. But that doesn't look good. Again, the aesthetics on this figure are not as good as I'd want them to be. Now this looks really good. Like the Duel Disk is on, the angle of where the hair is supposed to be, and look how he's pointing. This looks good. This is a half decent pose for this figure. This figure doesn't have enough of those good poses, but at least it has something, I guess. But if you are a fan of Season 4, or if you've seen the Bonds Beyond Time movie, you might slightly know about this face. So this is the Yubel face. So this is like him pretty much yelling Yu-Gi-Oh! And summoning a Pharaoh type of equivalent. Now if we pair this, I don't know, with a fist, and we put the Duel Disk in standby or something, and then put the other hand on, so like you can like have it be at his waist or something. Never mind, I can't really do that too well because of the wind sweeping. So I guess we're going back to the fist. Now, this look, like where he's like looking off to the side, that looks really cool. But since I didn't have that dubbed, I'm not too attached to it, so I don't care too much about it. But this is a good look for Jaden. Like, this looks so good. But again, since it didn't have a 4Kids dub for it, I'm probably not going to pose it with it. If you want Jaden to be, like, from what I hear, like, the only dueling to survive type of personality where it's not fun anymore, yeah, like, this is a good pose for him, but I personally like this first season of GX the most, where he's mostly all about having fun, so we're not going to pose him with this one. So we're going back to the one where he's holding the cards and winking. I think that pose works best for me. So, to sum up the review, do I think the figure's bad? Not really. Like, I think the figure's fine. It's a little disappointing, but it's not bad. Like, when I see him on the shelf, especially in the pose I'm about to put him in, it makes me happy to have him. But when I think of the expectation that I have now for figures, because of how much the action figure industry has grown, especially for the collector's market, like, so with stuff like Figma, SH Figuarts, Revoltech, whatever, I just have a higher standard. But because of Revoltech putting out this release, Revoltech has definitely become my least favorite company when it comes to these scale of figures. But if Figma ends up doing a version of Jaden, then I'm gonna buy that and I'm gonna compare it to this figure and eventually get rid of one of the other ones. Whatever one looks better, I'm gonna keep. So if you're a Yu-Gi-Oh! GX fan, should you get this thing? If you're only into like the action figures like Figma and stuff like that, then it's fine. I'm just not a fan of the price point. If it was a $50 figure or less, then I'd probably be complaining a little bit less. But this is an expensive figure, so that's up to you. I think the Kuriboh statues technically look better, but if you like this action figure, if you think it looks good, then get them, because I think you're still going to like them. And I have a feeling that Yusei from 5Ds is going to be mostly the same way, but I'm still excited to get him anyway. So when that comes in, I'll review that, and he looks good so far, so we'll see how that goes. But that sums up the review. So if you're new and you like what you saw, you know what to do. In the description is going to be my social media, and let me know in the comments, do you plan on grabbing this Jaden figure? If you do, I will have links in the description where I can find it. And although this is technically a disappointing release for me, I'm still happy to have it. And I'm really excited when the amazing Yamaguchi Neos comes out and I compare that with him. That's going to look great. But until that comes out, I don't know. Sub for Yu-Gi-Oh! Figure reviews, because I plan on doing more. Yeah, I'm excited for the Monster Arts Red Eyes to come out. I'm excited for them to hopefully come out with more figures like that. I'm hoping that they do more monsters outside of dragons, personally. But I'm also really excited to see, like, what else comes out of this. Like, are we gonna get other characters or other monsters or what have you? But anyway, thank you for watching. I love you guys to death. And I'll see you on the next one. So peace, peace.